Welcome back to Down the Track. Today is a very special episode. I have with me none other than Mr. Jamie Alter. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. You don't need to use the Mr. part when you speak to me, so
Okay, I'll
I'm
I'll just
doing
call you
well.
I'll call you Jamie Pie from now.
Works.
So, for those who are not familiar with you, what's the elevator pitch? Who's Jamie Alter? Briefly.
uh, Jamie Alter, like nowadays, like over the last year, because of lockdown, people ask me a lot more to send in like a bio because of all these various video things I do. So I
Yep.
just put journalist, writer, actor, and YouTuber because that's literally what I'm doing now. Over the last year. So, but look, basically, if you say my claim to some meager version of fame would be being a cricket journalist for the past 15 years. So yeah.
2005, right? I think that's when you made the jump.
2005. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Because
Yep.
previously you're working in the corporate sector, right, in the States, and then you suddenly shift
In the
over.
States. Yeah. 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 Thank God I got out of there.
So what made you make that switch? Because maybe around at that time, sports journalism wasn't as, I'm not going to say popular, but that's a simple way of putting it. But their
Hmm.
YouTube wasn't as popular, Twitter wasn't as popular. Right now a single individual has so much reach through social media and these means. So like, what kind of made you made the jump from the corporate side?
Uh, Really simple. Just two things. One, I was like kind of homesick to get back to India,
Mm-hmm.
because I grew up there. So after about 6.5 odd years there, like it was good. Like I keep saying, I had a good job. I was, there was financial security. Everything was fine. It wasn't like I was in some bad space. But I wasn't. It wasn't what I wanted to do. And literally, I rocked up to work one day at like it was a winter morning. I had to be at my desk at like 7:45. So imagine this
Oof.
guy like
It's
gets
still
gets
dark
up.
outside.
Yeah, no, it was dark when I walked out to my car, and I had to scrape off ice from like, so it was one of those days. You drive for like 45 minutes, you get to work, you sit down, you're like, you know what? Is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? And the answer was right there. It was like, no. So it was a combination of me sort of wanting to get back to India and see what I could do. And then just being a total cricket nut. Like a lot of us are, you know what I'm saying? You're at work or something, but you're checking scores, and you're reading up articles. This is, of course, before, smartphones and all. So it was just consuming cricket on a desktop or a laptop.
Yeah.
So yeah, one day I said, you know what, this is not for me. Maybe I only get one shot to really follow my dream, and
Mm-hmm.
it was to sort of be like a cricket writer and travel the world getting paid to write on cricket. I said it sounds absurd for a 24-year-old sitting behind a desk in a big financial services company, but if you
Mm-hmm.
don't do it now, you might not ever want to do it again. So I took the plunge, and like I think all the stars aligned for me really, really well. I'm very fortunate that I was hired by Cricinfo without any experience of journalism, a
That's
total
awesome.
outsider. Yeah. So I owe everything that I've learned in this line of work to those 4.5 years at Cricinfo.
That's awesome, man. And were you always interested in writing, or was it more that you were a cricket nut and then you transitioned into, okay, the medium through which I'll express myself is writing, or were you like not that into writing before?
I think the other way. I think the writing side was always there, because like I belong to a family of people who write. They're teachers and authors and poets and academia. So I think that was all around me, and we grew up in a household where we were encouraged to read whatever we wanted to do, write. So I think in middle school, like grades 7 and 8, I'd written a bunch of like short skits for like art class and drama class. Then in high school, I wrote a few things on the side. So I think just that just combined with the sheer passion and the love for cricket. Also, to be very honest, I knew that if I get into this line of work, I'm not someone who wants to be in front of the camera. I never harbored any aspirations of being a commentator or an anchor. I had this real fear of the camera. So back then, when there only was one option, which was to write. So I think for me, it was never a doubt. Just go out there and write. And of course, now with things evolving into Twitter and social media and YouTube, you have, like you said, a lot more avenues to express yourselves. And even the new catchphrase is content creator, which sort
Yeah.
of very belatedly I've come to accept that term because that's
Yep.
what I am now. So yeah, I really had no doubt that if I was going to do it, it had to be in the written form.
Makes sense, and I guess that's the trend these days, right? It's like you now, like you said, you never wanted to be kind of in front of the camera, but now you're known for being in front of the camera, right? Especially through
It's been
YouTube and now
a
acting.
year exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And all these YouTube and acting, like I've said many times before, these were not planned things. It's just they've all sort of fallen into my lap, and I just want to do as much as I can. So yeah.
sure. And you're talking about family. So your father was the great Tom Alter, and the first time I came across him was that famous Sachin interview he did way back in the day. I think that was Sachin's first ever televised or video interview that he
Yes,
ever did,
yes.
right? And I
Yeah.
think, like you, your father was multi-talented. He was a sports nut. He was an actor. He did shairi, if I'm not mistaken. Like he was a
Absolutely.
man of
Yes,
many talents,
yes.
and I think that has followed you. That talent has gone through the family. But so,
Nowhere near as talented or as passionate about life as he was. But I there's no denying that a few sprinkles of that dust did rub off on me. Yeah, yeah.
definitely, and with regards to cricket in particular, like he was very prolific in cricket, right? So did his passion for cricket was it ingrained in you from a young age, or did you pick it up later? Like, oh my God, Dad's just talking about cricket, or like from the beginning, both of you would have that relationship over cricket.
No, it's a very, very, very good question you've asked. I think it's a common assumption for some of the reasons you've outlined before, that growing up in a house of not just a cricket nut but a total sports nut like my father, and I think I'm saying this for the first time on any show. And these are all things that I've heard when he was growing up. You can imagine a second generation American kid growing up in the India of 50s and 60s, where there was no way of getting stuff from the States. Literally every 4 or 5 months, some relative in the States would like send him Sports Illustrated and all these magazines. So
Right.
that kind of kid who he could in 2000, and I think my uncle, his older brother, told me that one time he was in the States around 2014 or 15, and
Hmm.
he met the high school football coach where my uncle taught. And
Yeah.
when he heard football, he was like dropping names of like the offensive lineback of this Green Bay Packers,
Yeah.
and like
Bart
of
Starr and
19.
those kind of people, right? Like those
Even
crazy.
I have no idea. But he was this guy who was at ease dropping names of how many runs Clive Lloyd scored against
Yeah.
England in 1973. He
Yeah.
could name you Larry Bird stats. So he was a total nut. So yes, growing up in that kind of a household, and my cousins, my uncles, they're all like huge sports fans. So sports was definitely a big part of my upbringing. Cricket, oddly enough, somehow I didn't take to much later. And
Mhm.
I think because when you have a father who's always watching it, and taking you to matches, to watch test matches and to watch Ranji Trophy matches, and then to go on Sundays to my dad's club and watch them play, I think somehow it was all this a bit too much, like not forced, but I think it
Mhm.
was a bit too much, and I needed a space to get into it when it was not all about like my father and his things. So when
Mhm.
I was 14 or 15, I went to boarding school in North India. And
Mhm.
then the 96 World Cup came around, and it was
Yep.
literally being in a hostel full of like 200, 300 kids, all my age, mad about this sport. That was
Mhm.
like what really said, something clicked off like, wow, maybe I should be getting into the sport a lot more than I was. I'd
Yep.
watch games. I knew names. I'd met Sachin 3 times before. I was a
Yeah.
kid when that interview happened with him, and I was actually there
Mhm.
as a kid. I have very vague memories because I was like 7 or something.
Sure.
But it literally took me to leave that household, get away from my father's cricket madness, to actually become a cricket nut. So, if that makes sense,
That makes
yeah,
complete sense,
that's it.
actually. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I guess like even like children of celebrities, right? They don't necessarily follow along in the
yeah,
footsteps of their parents, right? Because it's like overwhelming for them, and then they have to
yeah,
kind of find their own space and their own time, and then if that's what they choose to come back to, then that's what they
yeah.
do, right?
And my dad was thrilled, like when I called him saying I'm like a total nerd now. He's like, well, I'm surprised it didn't happen to you before. So he knew, like maybe not forcing, but maybe he was trying to get me to become a fan too soon in life.
Yeah.
But once I became a fan, then I think I went past him in many ways. So Yeah.
That's amazing. So speaking of cricket, just finished, like not just, it's been a few weeks, but the topic du
Mm.
jour is still the kind of the Australia tour where India had a remarkable series. And what are your basic thoughts about that before we transition to the England series? Like just maybe like a minute or two of your summary, because there's so many things you can say, but just an
So
initial
many,
recap.
man. So many. I mean, look,
Yeah,
I think we have to see. I mean, how, like I keep saying, how many of us saw that coming, right? I mean, show me anybody, you know.
no.
And I will literally go in, I don't know, I'll change my name or something, whatever it is. But look, just I think just to keep it short, that team goes from 36 all out, like the laughing stock of cricket watchers on social media, to then losing Virat Kohli, of course, to paternity leave.
Yeah.
Every match they played, before, during, and after, they lost key personnel.
Someone,
But
every match.
Australia, literally, before the first match, Ishant Sharma didn't go to Australia. Rohit Sharma did not go there. So literally before that match, they were not full strength. During that match, Mohammad Shami fractures his arm. He goes out. Virat Kohli leaves. In the second match, somebody else gets injured. But then that team goes to the MCG. They beat Australia by the same margin, 8 wickets. They go to Sydney, where they pull off arguably a draw of, I don't know, this generation,
Yeah.
battered and bruised. Then to top that all off, they lose 4 players before the next match, and
Yeah.
then that I mean, I'm not even calling it A team. I'm calling it B team. That B team
Yeah.
goes and beats Australia, where no team has won for 33 years. So
Yeah.
all that put together, just the most engaging, the most riveting, the most emotional overseas series I've seen.
So you mentioned the keyword overseas. How would you compare it to the 2001 series in India? Like, was
That's
that?
exactly. Look, I mean, look, that, yes, I understand that we're looking back through the cliched rose tinted glasses. I
Yeah.
watched that entire series as a college student in Midwestern United States, in a
Yeah.
basement with literally
Odd timings.
35
Odd
odd
timings.
timing, 35, and not just Indians. I mean, we were Indians, Pakistanis, Sri Lankans, Bangladeshis. There was a Zimbabwean, there were Nepalis. We were all like backing this Indian team. So obviously that is a very special emotion for me. Like so
Yeah.
many guys from different parts of the world
Yeah.
watching that, and I'm having to pay for a subscription. So obviously all that aside,
Yeah.
that was a damn good Australian team. 16 matches in a row, the final frontier. They absolutely smash India in the first test match. Then they enforce the follow on. I think all that happened. That's probably the greatest Indian series that I've seen at home.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Okay.
unfair. It's unfair to compare these two because of the level of skill on view. That's why I
Hmm.
stress away and home. Yeah.
That makes total sense, and I actually agree with that because you can't. It's like saying who's better, right? Is it Messi or Pele, right? Like it's a generational gap, right? You can't just say that
Absolutely.
someone is
Absolutely.
blanketly the best of all time. It depends on the generations, right? So fair
Yep.
enough. I
Yep.
agree with you.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I would argue that in this series, it was a total team effort because in every match, a bunch of different players, performed and stood up and took responsibility. Right? You can argue the biggest driving momentum maybe was Rishabh Pant because from the third test he saved the test and in the fourth test he chased it down. Right? But like,
Yeah.
I would say Team India, man of the series. But did you have anyone in mind, or do you agree with that sentiment that it was a team effort?
I have to agree, and yes, we often use the term team effort really loosely, but this was the entire coaching staff. This was the entire squad effort, right? I think
It
every
was the
every single
physios
person.
getting Ashwin
Exactly.
out to
It's
bat.
the physio. I mean, the physio, like the team condition strength, whatever it is. I mean, who apart from Kuldeep Yadav, I think everyone played, right?
I
And
think
even
so.
that's
Yeah.
a travesty that a guy like him didn't get a chance. Anyways, that's a
Yeah.
topic for a different day. It's everyone. It's of course it's Ajinkya Rahane leading himself so well. It's the feedback, be it given by the coaches, whoever took the calls. I don't think we can say, oh, it's all Rahane taking calls. There's a reason. I
Yeah.
mean, any move to send Rishabh Pant up one order, this could have come from Ashwin. This could have come from Shastri. We don't know that, right?
Yep.
which is why it just goes back to being a real team effort. I've read, I've heard people say that, oh, the man of this series for me was Mohammad Siraj. For me, it was Pujara. For me, it's Pant. But yes, Pant played, two exceptional innings back to back when nobody gave him a chance to.
Yeah.
But then would his innings have been possible without Pujara batting 212 balls? No,
Yeah.
a Gill walking in. Just imagine Gill never got a chance. That could have happened too, right? So it
Yeah,
is
it was all
from
luck.
everywhere you look at it. It's a entirely, this is a team effort. Yep.
All right, and then I guess the last point on this series was you were a part of the online press conference, the now famous one with Rahane and Shastri at the end after the win. What were the vibes like when you're talking to them? And do you remember the question that you asked and what the answer was? Like, just by any chance?
I do. I actually joined probably a few minutes late, and I've been not so regular with these press conferences because you sort of know when to go, and then so I've been a few, but I wanted to make this one. Now it's just to give you and your viewers an idea. This was unlike other Zoom calls. Here, your video is off from there, and you cannot. They cannot see you. You have to raise your hand in that Zoom call thing. If you get picked, great. I was fortunate that I think mine was like the 5th question. And what did I ask now? I've just blanked out. Anyways, I can see Ravi Shastri and Rahane there. I said, well, what did it say about the team's mental resilience? Like I said here, to go from 36 all out to the Melbourne MCG. And I said, and what if you could pick out one moment that really turned it? I said, I know this is a very next to impossible question. And literally after I asked it, Ravi Shastri, he literally sat up with it. That's a good question. And I'm like, chalo, maine to apna kaam kar liya. And he says, in his typical way, I can't do it as well as some of my colleagues.
He has that swagger about him, right? Ravi
And Ravi Shastri, he's saying that like this. Look, he's a great guy. He goes, I'll tell you, Washington and Shardul, that partnership changed us. It changed us, So I'm like, yeah, that. And and then he said, also, I asked him, I said, what role does the system, the IPL and a coach like Rahul Dravid play? He says, glad you brought the IPL. IPL gets a lot of flack. IPL gives you confidence. So something like that he said. So that's,
and you're just feeling good about yourself, and you're like, yep, those are the questions.
I'm like, I rock up late. I raise my hand. I get picked. I get a chance, and I got my headline. So yeah.
Awesome, man. That must have been awesome. So like we discussed just before we started recording, England is up now. Players are heading into the bubble, and that's going to be an awesome series because both teams are coming off convinced. England was convincing, but India was convincing at the end of it. Both strong winners in their series. So, who do you think is going to be more confident coming into this next series? Is it England because they won nicely and Joe Root's in form, or is it India because they have the momentum?
Yeah, look, obviously you look at history, and India has dominated England, at home the last time they came. But they also are going to be without Ravindra Jadeja, who, to my mind, is as important at home as Ravindra.
He's become so amazing, right? In the last 12 to 18 months, he's become indispensable in all formats.
Indispensable, and his batting over the last 2.5 years has really blossomed. I think when we talk about him in India, the batting is not really factored in because at home, the 6 guys before him normally get the job done. But he did have to prove that he could bat, and he's done that over the last 2 odd years. But his bowling in tandem, Ashwin would not have gotten half the wickets had he not had Jadeja at the other end. And there have been many matches where Jadeja at home has out-bowled Ashwin, Yes, some were ranked turners, which the ICC then ended up condemning. But across, the stats are pretty even when these 2 guys. So they won't be without him, which means they have to play either Kuldeep Yadav, who must be itching to make a point, or they might even go with someone like Washington Sundar, just because of how well he played in that last Brisbane match. They're going to be without Mohammad Shami, which means and no Umesh Yadav. So it's not like India has their first choice bowling attack. So that's one thing which I think England will take some positives from. But England, as well as they played, I think let's be brutally honest, that Sri Lankan team was also pretty average, pretty weak. Joe Root, yes, we know that he swept over 300 times. But beyond Joe Root, Rory Burns is coming back, has not played in India. Dom Sibley has not played in India. Zach Crawley has not played in India. Johnny Berso has not done much in India. So again, a lot of it goes back on Joe Root and Ben Stokes, maybe Moeen Ali if they find a way to play Moeen. So while England will be confident, it's the odds are heavily stacked against them. They have to take calls like do they play Dom Bess and Jack Leach and Moeen? Do they drop one of them for Moeen? I think Moeen is extremely underrated as an off spinner. The guy's won you 2 test matches against India with his spin.
Yes.
But having not been a prime red ball player, having been quarantined, what does he bring? Overall, I think India would be more positive. But like some experts are saying, India need to get out of that high of Australia and get back to, because one wrong session, we've seen certain foreign teams come here and upset India in the first match of a series.
Definitely, and I think most recently, I think it was Australia where Smith had gone crazy in the home test. Like he was playing so well. So I completely agree. So going on to that team selection point where you said that they might even play 3 spinners. What kind of pitches are you expecting on the tour generally? Is it going to be ranked turners, or do you think it'll be more traditional and then starts turning on day 4 or 5?
Well, I think the very interesting part is that we have 2 new pitches here. The surface at the Chepauk, Chennai, has now got a new curator. So a lot of questions. What kind of track does he bring? If you see the last test match that was played there, Karun Nair got 300. Okay, okay. So I'm saying in that match, England crossed 400. India put up nearly 750 runs. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and they beat England, right? So I don't think we're going to see as flat tracks, just because we have a new curator. Then you go to Ahmedabad, which is a brand new venue, a brand new track. Who knows what's going to happen there? One of India's biggest losses came in Ahmedabad, 2008, when South Africa came. I was at that match. Dale Steyn and Nitini bowled them out for 77 in the first session, right? Why? Because that time they had changed the pitch. They put what's called red soil. It was hugely controversial. Anil Kumble was the captain that time. Before the match, he was like, what's happening here? He and Dhoni. I think was Kumble captain and Dhoni was anyway. Both Dhoni.
Maybe.
Yeah, I forgot. I think it was Dhoni. I think Kumble was playing. I think Dhoni might have been captain. Whoever it was, they were very surprised that Dheeraj Prasanna, the chief creator, had used red soil for that match. Again, so it's very hard to say what kind of tracks we can expect. We do know it's February, March. There's going to be no rain. No matches are going to be hit by the weather. I personally think all matches will go to day 5 because England's batting is better than Australia's batting, and because India will not have Jadeja, you might see England getting to 400 a bit more frequently. And when teams get to 400, it really removes the chance of a match getting over in 4 days. I think India will win the series overall. I think we will see spin do well. We'll see pace because there's Anderson, Broad, Archer, Mark Wood on one side. There's Ishant Sharma, Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Siraj. This is one of the rare Indian home series where 2 very good fast bowling attacks will be going up against each other. So I think we'll have hundreds. We'll have 5-wicket hauls from the spinners and the fast bowlers.
Fair prediction. I think I think I agree with you mostly. But then, I don't know. I just feel in recent times, India has been susceptible to a sudden collapse out of nowhere, right? It's like in both forms of the game. So that's the interesting part, right? You can always argue that India are, Lions at home and they're dominant, but I don't know. Just recently in the last few years, it's just like anything could happen with India. Back in Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm saying like you mentioned that 2017 series. What happened there? This was still that era where they were keener on ranked turners, and then they got one in Pune, wasn't it? And Steve O'Keefe and Nathan Lyon bajao India, right?
Yeah.
Then overnight you saw tactics change. They go to Bangalore. In Bangalore, Nathan Lyon gets 8 wickets, but India's out spinners outdo Australia's, right?
Yeah.
India win in Bangalore, it's 1-1. Then they go to Ranchi, where a high scoring draw. Cheteshwar Pujara bats the longest he's ever batted. He and
Yeah.
Zaha had to really bail India out of defeat there, right? And that
Yes.
set the fourth test up in Dharamshala. Again, a brand new venue. No one was sure how it would be. And then India played Kuldeep Yadav, who gets 4 wickets on the first day. So I think we're looking at potentially a series like that, because of what England bring, because of two new pitches. And yes, there is a bit of vulnerability to India's batting, which is why I think people should not be underestimating Dom Bess, Jack Leach. One good spell, there are little cracks there in India's batting, and
Hmm.
that can lead to the collapse which you're talking about.
Yep.
Not
And
a
who do
lot,
you?
but maybe
But
once. Yeah.
yeah. And who do you think are the keys on each side? Like maybe a couple of players. Who do you think are the key players for both teams in this series?
Let's start with England. You have to start with Joe Root. Got a fairly decent record in India, not
Hmm.
outstanding, but the fact that he's been able to go to Sri Lanka and cross that problem of not converting hundreds. 2019 Ashes, Joe Root got 550s, didn't get 100. A lot of experts have said, this is his problem. He goes to Sri Lanka, he bats, he gets 228, was it? And then 185, 86. So I think that's a huge sign for India that Joe Root's going to come, and he's going to sweep you. That said, I think Ashwin is a far better spinner than what Joe Root would have encountered in Sri Lanka. I think Ashwin has one of the highest LBW rates. So, that's a factor we have to look at. I think Josh Butler, a guy who has twice now in his career had to prove that he belongs in the test team. I think he's going to be a huge player. There's no Johnny Bairstow. I think Butler will be gone after the first test, I think. So from a pretty inexperienced batting order, how Root and Butler go. I think Jofra Archer. We've only seen Jofra Archer play for England in England. He's now been part of 3 IPLs, of which 2 were in India, 1 was in the UAE. Jofra Archer has not played a test match outside of England.
Yeah.
So having him come to India, refreshed after a break, he's that one bowler which could even find life on that Chennai surface. And as we saw, Pat Cummins, Hazelwood, not Stark. I think Stark was very average. The way that Hazelwood and Cummins relentlessly hammered away at India's batsmen, that's
Hmm.
a role which I think Jofra Archer could play. So for me, from England, it's Root, Butler, and Jofra Archer. From India, look, I mean, Shubman Gill, how can you not just wonder at the talent that boy has? I mean,
Insane.
just watch it. Insane. And he's just one of these guys who comes from that factory of just outrageously talented Indian batsmen. I think the fact that he shoved out Shaw from 11 was a real statement, because I think
Considering
man to
when
man,
Shaw was considered more preferential in the past, when they both burst onto the scene, Shaw was
absolutely.
considered number one, and then Gill, if there was a chance, Gill would come in, but then he's taken his chance and like gone
He's
blast
taken
him.
it, and Shaw needs a kick up the backside, because that boy is, to my mind, the most naturally talented Indian batsman of this era. But for whatever reason, he's just not able to cut it. I hope they set him down. I hope they have a committee or a team to get him working, because you need him as a cricketing nation.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gill, Rohit Sharma, I'm still a bit skeptical of his potential as a test opener. But I think,
Hmm.
just given the fact that he's done so well in India, how he goes about trying to prove his critics wrong, that's going to be a fun player to watch. Virat Kohli, 3 matches away,
He's
history
back.
creates. What is that guy out to prove? That's going to be something really fun to watch. We know Virat Kohli is going to score runs. He does that with one eye shut in India. But how does he lead? How does he captain? What team choices he makes? Oftentimes, he's been found wanting as a tactician, as a reader of conditions, as a picker of players. I think England tour of 2018 and before that South Africa showed that he's not the greatest reader of pitches. I think how well India did with their selection in Australia. Can Virat Kohli and the people in his ear all the time, can they maintain that? That's one real talking point. And then on the last note, just coming to the youngsters who really stood up in Australia, will they even get a chance? Does Mohammad Siraj get a chance
Yeah.
after leading India? Does he get a chance? It's not so straightforward. Does a Washington Sundar get a chance? Maybe, but not a given.
Straightforward.
Does a Shardul Thakur play? So these things, these are players which I'm really keen to see do well.
Definitely. And I was going to just wrap up by asking you a few other questions, but you mentioned one thing about Job for Archer. This is the first time he's played a series outside of England, right? But he has so much IPL exposure, right? At least for a few seasons. So, like, do you think the
Sure.
IPL as a whole will assist these foreign players who've come in who play in the IPL? Do you think that in these days coming to India, you are more prepared because you've played in the IPL, or is not that much of a factor?
No, absolutely, you're right. I think this is a huge factor. Not just in terms of how to go out there and bowl, but to how to react in that bubble. India has been overwhelming for so many foreign teams down the years. What the IPL has done is it has broken down that barrier. It has made players more comfortable with the Indian lifestyle, the Indian travel. Because you're getting paid more, so you get more, you get better treatment, and that has a very positive spin-off on how you just go about your daily life. When the conditions around you are better, you are more exposed to the weather. Chennai, you're playing an IPL. Come on, you're playing in every major test center in India, right? So
Yeah.
the grounds. That said, very different from Jofra Archer bowling 4 overs on a slightly cool evening across 2 spells, as
Yeah.
compared to Jofra Archer running in at 10 in the morning in Chennai. We've seen from Jofra Archer's brief test experience that he's used in short bursts.
Yeah.
But as you can imagine, a short burst it's in Southampton in August is different from a short burst in Ahmedabad in March.
Peak
So
summer.
these kind of questions, not quite peak, but it's going to be humid.
Yeah.
So how guys like these, how they focus, how they function, a lot of it is going to be them looking back. Hey, when I played a year ago in front of 25,000 people at this very ground, what was I going through? So they're going to have to recall their muscle memory of how they coped. But yeah, definitely playing one IPL or playing 10 IPLs is huge for players coming into a series like this. Yeah.
Awesome, man. So I thought we'd end with just a few like quicker fire questions, just like
Sure,
not
sure, sure.
related to cricket, maybe. So which of your YouTube channels are you focusing on the most? Which one do you want to like take to the next level? Because you have one
Right
with your
now,
wife, you have a cricket one, then you have,
yes, yes.
teaching.
I have the teaching. I have the teaching. I have my personal one where I do a lot of stuff, and then I have cricket fables with my wife. I think just right now, because we're just coming off a really epic test series, and we have one more. The focus definitely over the past 6 weeks has been on cricket fables. So
Mhm.
of the three, also it's now growing. It's now picking up. So I think I'm having the most fun doing videos for cricket fables right now.
Awesome. And what's next? I guess Pink Villa and all the entertainment papers want to know what's next after Afsos.
Yeah, look, man, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's been a fascinating ride to sort of test those waters and see what's happening.
Mhm.
I did have a very big web series lined up, but then the virus happened, so that's been pushed off the table. But
Mhm.
in terms of acting, I do have another web series lined up. I can't say a word about it. I shot for a South Indian movie in the Kannada language that should be out, if all goes well, April. And then
Mhm.
I'm just going to be flying down to Bombay in 2 weeks to shoot a really big budget Hindi movie. Again, I cannot say a word about it.
That's fine.
So and it's coming between the second and third test matches. So I'm going to be off cricket for a while, but I'm going to try my damnedest to juggle the cricket and this. So yeah, I mean, if people have seen Afsos, they liked it. Be patient. It's not like I've gone off the radar. It's just
Yeah.
the virus has really set it's set back the whole movie industry big time. So things are now slowly picking up again. Yeah.
And the advent of these streaming services really changes the fundamentals of how you can do that, right? So that's another awesome thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this is maybe a second last question. This is a bit maybe of a deeper question, but I really find it interesting. So you did an article with Your Story a couple of years ago, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Shraddha Sharma, Your Story.
Yeah. This when was
Yeah,
this? No, this
it
was during the
wasn't recent.
lockdown.
It was during
It was
lockdown,
about
and
it was about 6 or 7 months ago. Maybe
yeah,
7 months max. Yeah, yeah.
and the headline was very intriguing to me. And if you don't mind me quoting it, they called you
Yeah.
"quote unquote" the white man with an Indian passport and heart. And I found that very like intriguing and on point. So is that how you feel about yourself, like growing up in India? And I know it's a very difficult and not a straightforward question, but would that be accurate?
Yes, it's accurate, and that's exactly how, more than myself, that's how people see me once they get to know me. It's You could see me walking down the street in India, and you would not assume I am who I am, what I am, right? But
Yeah.
those who do know me, even on the surface, that is the first thing which probably comes to mind. It's not necessarily how I see myself, but
Mm-hmm.
now in these times, when when you put yourself out there on YouTube or in any form, you have
Mm-hmm.
to be more understanding of what people say. So is that a headline which I would have given myself 5 years ago? No, but
Mm-hmm.
I get it. It is very accurate. So yeah, that's one article, and there was one more also which came out around the same time. I think they used the same kind of thing, but in a slightly smarter way. I forgot what it was now. So I mean, I get it. That is what I am. At the end of the day.
And I'll just like to end with saying, do you have any advice for aspiring journalists and YouTubers and like people wanting to, improve themselves on YouTube and, through Instagram and stuff like that? Like, what's your just general advice for those trying to get into the journalism industry or just into cricket,
Yeah,
covering cricket?
yeah. I'm saying I just, and this is like a shameless self plug here. I just
Plug
did
away.
a I just finished a 6 chapter or a 6 episode series for an app called Graphy app, which is run by this company called Unacademy, and it was
I've
about
heard of them.
yeah, so it was about how, if anybody wants to become a sports journalist or writer, what they should do. So I'm actually going to deviate more into what we're doing here, YouTube and video,
Hmm.
because I spoke about it for 6 hours in a row, so I'm a little bit knackered from that. But I think now what lockdown has really amplified is the fact that you can just flip your phone, or log on
Yeah.
to your laptop, and you are a content creator. And I think that is just brilliant. So my advice would be to anyone who's even considering it: you may have inhibitions, you might have fears. Don't worry about it. Just do what you're doing, do what I'm doing, look into a camera and talk, right? Try try to be as unique, because you don't want to be doing what the next person is doing. I mean, YouTube is a hub where a person feeding a cat for 6 weeks in her trailer gets you millions of
Million.
views, right? Which is fine. I'm saying, do you want to be doing that when said person is getting those views? I would say no. But it's guys like you and the other fellow Asjad, whose channel I went on, and the other fellow, his name is Nabil. Just, you have a passion for cricket, right? So what
Yeah.
you guys are doing is fantastic. Just keep doing it. And don't think like, yeah, how do I look? How do I sound? What my background is? That's all secondary.
Yeah.
Just get the confidence of looking in the camera, speaking your mind, being yourself, and where that journey takes you, that's not in your control. That's not in my control. But I really love the fact that there are such YouTube channels popping up. So I would say just do what you want to do. But then, like I said, don't go out of your comfort zone. Like, don't try to talk about, finance or physics if that's not your natural thing. Don't try too hard to get views. Do what works for you, right? Today, I'm talking to you about cricket. Tomorrow, you might open a channel for football or lacrosse or NBA. That's fine, but you have to have knowledge and interest of that thing. In regards to like social media, Instagram, look, that's a whole different beast. I think,
Mhm.
yes, they're all linked, but that's more of a personal thing. Like, do you want to put up pictures of yourself having a salad, smoking a cigarette, walking your dog? that's up to you, you know. So I
Yeah.
I like to keep YouTube somewhat different from that. Yes, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook can help you promote YouTube, but I think
Hmm.
YouTube is a different beast. People want to get into that, do that, spend more time doing YouTube than doing Instagram, is how I'd say it.
That's a fair point, and that's an awesome way to end the interview. Thank you so much for giving us your time. We really, really appreciate it. It was so insightful. And if you want to plug anything, please be my guest. Like anything, where can people catch you online?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Mustafa, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure talking with like-minded people who just love cricket, and especially here through the video medium. I think it's a great way to connect. I try to oblige as many requests that come my way, to do things, because I see a spark in what someone does, be it on Twitter or YouTube. So I mean, thank you and well done to what you guys are doing. Yeah, you guys, people who don't know about me, you can follow me on my YouTube channel, which is as my name is spelled, Jamie Alter. There's Cricket Fables, is a cricket specific channel which I run with my wife Meha, who's also a sports broadcaster. We do previews, we do reviews. We've had players, we've had Chiteshwar Pujara, Navdeep Saini, Nick Knight, Monty Panesar, Akash Chopra. We had Bharat Sundaresan, the Crick Buzz journalist who covered the Australia series like nobody else in the wildest dreams could have done. So we're just having, we're going to have fans in the future. We're just doing cricket things. My third channel is called Let's Learn with Jamie. It's dedicated for the Hindi Urdu speakers who perhaps want to improve their English. So, go check out, do the whole like, subscribe, and share thing, guys, because we need all the support we can get. But I mean,
And
that's it. I
send us
just,
a few this way too.
absolutely, absolutely subscribe to this channel too, guys.
Thank you so much, man. Have a nice evening. Thank you for being on, and we'll catch you next time.